So I say we get a rolling. What do you guys think?
Let's do it.
Okay. I think that group discussion is going to be the fun part. All right. So welcome to our thought leadership connection about the middle mattering. I think if you're listening to this, you know who Lodestone is, but if not, you know, maybe your friend sent it to you. Maybe you're like, who is Lodestone? So we're a leadership advisory and consulting firm. We are organizational psychologists. Practical approach, you can see the things there. We really are all about human capital science and making behavior at work better and more enjoyable and more profitable for companies. So today, when we're talking about leadership development in the middle management, it's really going to be a fun conversation with a former client of ours. And we're going to talk about who everybody is here. The first thing you might notice is Jordan Dodd is not here. I am not Jordan Dodd. I'm playing the role of Jordan Dodd and my own self. So this is cool. And this is one of those navigating ambiguity lessons that middle managers or any managers really need to know. Jordan's got a sick kid. He's at the urgent care with a little toddler getting IV treatment. And so we're knowing that that's way more important than hosting this call and looking charming here. And that's the kind of thing that actually gets covered, ironically, in our lead program, that you have to think about the whole self of the person coming. So we're wishing Jordan and his little Lawson well, and we're carrying on without him. So, anyway, so as I'm not Jordan, you may have guessed I'm Sandy, and I'm the founder and managing partner at Lodestone People Consulting. And I'm going to be having a chat essentially with Jess Wright here. And I'll let you, Jess, introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. As Sandy said, I'm Jess Wright, Director of People and Business Operations for 360 MEP. Fortunate to have known Sandy for about 6 years now and have worked closely with Lodestone in developing a leadership program. So I'm excited to talk about everything we learned partnering together, and what we saw, some of the successes, some of the challenges, and why I still love talking to her any chance I get.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right, people are just popping in, so I feel like repeating. Jordan Dodd was going to host Jess and me today, but he's out with a sick child, and this is part of life as a leader. You roll with changes, so we're moving on. So what we want to talk about today with Jess, super excited to have this conversation, is really why middle management matters, because so many people focus on the top of the house and, oh, let's get the C-suite right. But work happens through middle management. And so that's the short answer of why we think it matters. We want to have a real conversation about a real case study. We worked with Jess at a company for many years, and we're still working with that company on this program. Um, Jess and I are going to riff a little bit after we do a quick poll of everybody else. And then we're just going to freeform any questions for us about a program like this, and then we'll hit takeaways and next steps. All right, so first we have a poll question. We're curious because Sydney and I were just talking about this before jumping on. The macroeconomics going on right now are a little bit crazy in the US. And so it's driving all kinds of behavior in companies, good and bad. And we're curious about what's the current climate about developing leaders in your organization. And Sid's got a few options in a poll that we can answer here. So if you would just choose between these. Huh. So we really saw answers everywhere on that. We've got top leaders supporting, we've got HR pushes it, and answers really kind of all over the board. So that's great. We can talk about any and all situations here. All right, let's kind of jump ahead then. Um, all right, so I would love to just talk about why does it matter so much? Just tell us what's going on in your organizations. I see Ashley, Andrew, some others on here. Just um, what's going on in your organizations? Yeah, Andrew, tell us.
I think I can take a stab at the first question. Why development at mid-level matters so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's my impression that mid-level management is one of the only groups that can kind of see up and down the chain of command simultaneously. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been my impression, especially after partnering with Science, that we have, Science Corporate and their executive team, and they have the broader vision of what they want to do from like a company-wide perspective with all 30 plus divisions. And then, being in that role at a singular division, I have to then take their direction, their vision, and I gotta kind of push it downward. And then I also have to, communicate up the chain of command with what we're seeing boots on the ground.
Yeah, and it's a little bit as you were saying that, it struck me it's a little bit like being that sandwich generation of you got to take care of your parents, you got to take care of your kids. How do you decide who you are to whom, right? And there's just like you're really squeezed having to handle all that messaging and kind of be on multiple teams, if you will. Does that kind of sum that up?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I feel like it's also the biggest risk to any organization because if you can't have your middle management leaders aligned, I mean, that's where the wheels usually fall off.
Yeah, 100%. All right. So, thank you for sharing that. I know it's sometimes people are like, I don't want to go first or I don't want to go at all. So, um, anyway, recognizing that the people live on this call are people who know a little bit about how this program works, at least in their company, but also recognizing that we're recording this for a lot of people who said they couldn't make it live. We're really going to keep our discussion broad today about what is a program like this, and then pepper in, what are some specifics. And I would just encourage those of you in one of these programs to hop in at that point with anything about those, examples. But I wanted to talk about this real life example that Jess was a part of. And this is a program that's now in its fourth year of running.
Mhm.
Um, and we're going to take us back to the beginning and the origin story and walking us through some of that. And so that's the conversation we're going to have. And to start, wanted to just lay out, I think it makes sense, Jess, if you wouldn't mind, like, we just want to hit the what are the essentials of this when we talk about doing, at least here, right, at Lodestone
Mhm.
and where you were thinking about some components must be. And then I think we helped you, and you'll talk about this. We helped you visualize maybe some components that you hadn't thought about. But for us, there are just a few things that we hit upon that we structure into a program like this. And Sid's going to pop up just the framework of when we talk about mid-level leadership development through our lead program. Here are those components. And so it's always going to be competency-based curriculum. It's going to be adult learning approach. In other words, it's not just a bunch of butts and seats training, just a bunch of lecturing. And we have this capstone project, capstone kind of culmination of the project. And you can see on the right, there's a touch point every quarter, thinking about the individual, thinking about small groups, thinking about large groups, and then action learning project running underneath it. So just with that framing, Jess, can you kind of take us to when you first envisioned this, however many years ago that was, um, what were you thinking about? What of this was on your must-have, and what was the, ooh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that, and we added that in.
Yeah. So the organization that I was at was very decentralized, owned a number of operating companies around the world. And so, the number one thing for me was building some sense of community, building relationships and collaboration across managers so that our network of internal knowledge got bigger. And I wasn't sure how we were going to do that, but I knew that we needed a program that created this group of peers to work together, to challenge each other, to become partners far past the program's end. So the relationship side was incredibly important. The other piece for me was I wanted outside perspective and voices. I didn't want this to be a program that, I facilitated. I was facilitating emotional intelligence and things like that. And for this type of leadership program, there is significant value in outside perspective and expertise. And that creates a space where people can come and bring kind of authentic questions. They can have more intimate relationships with a coach where they create a safe space where they can say, hey, I'm having this challenge at work. And they're not worried about having those conversations with people at their work. It creates a safe space for them to really work through tough challenges. So those were my two biggest. And as we started talking through the program itself and designing, this kind of framework, the piece that you guys brought to me that I loved was the action learning project. That was not on our radar. We had kind of envisioned, kind of a classic leadership development program, trying to take it to the next level, being more relationship driven, but
Mm-hmm.
having something that then tied them to the business and wasn't fictional, wasn't a problem that we thought up for them to work through. These were actual challenges in the business. They might have been some were things that we wanted to do that we didn't have the resources for. Others were ones that we wanted to connect all of the operating companies, but we didn't necessarily know which individuals at each operating company would own it. And so
Mm-hmm.
these groups were tasked with real challenges that the business was facing, real opportunity, and spent their year on a project that directly impacted the business, that was real, that was impactful, that was utilized after
Mm-hmm.
their time in the program ended. So they felt a significant sense of value, contribution, and it created real life learning. It
Yeah.
created challenges on how to create buy-in on something, how to create partnerships, how to reach out and get something from people who are very busy and tell you they don't have time for it. And so you guys had brought that piece, and I think that created such a well-rounded program, from coaching to creating community to working on something real. It
Mm-hmm.
attacked so many different points of development for them.
Yeah, thanks for that. And we're going to talk in just a second about like the importance of senior leadership buy-in to a program like this, but I can't help but think that that action learning project or that ALP helped get your senior leadership really invested year after year because it is great to develop people. I think we all see the value of that. And when you can say, you know what, the business is avoiding cost someplace else where we were going to pay some expensive consultant to do this project. And now we have these folks that we have in the organization and they're learning and they're doing this thing and it's turning
Yeah.
out. I think that, I know that helped with that.
Yeah.
We keep talking about how this ran multiple years and is still running. You really successfully kept that running for all 3 straight years. You had multiple success stories of graduates being promoted. And what are you most proud of and what made that program so successful? What makes it so successful? You can, brag on yourself and the folks in there for a little bit.
I think, I always felt very humbled and complimented at the end of each year. The class would always say they could kind of see and feel how much this program meant to me. And I think that um, humbly was my favorite part because it did mean so much to me. It meant so much to me to contribute and be impactful in a team's development and a group's development. And so the fact that that was seen and felt, I think, they knew that this wasn't just, a program that we felt like we had to check a box. It really mattered to those of us that were involved in it. Seeing their growth mattered just so significantly. And so that always meant a lot to me. But I think the biggest success from the program is it did create communities. We had years where the groups gave themselves nicknames and still referred to themselves by that. They even
Shout out
as
Yellow
it
Moose.
Yellow Moose, yep. Yep, they have that class has statues on their desks. We saw classes creating check-ins with each
Mhm.
other, putting intentional time on calendars to check in to see how things were going. So there was intentional connection to keep those relationships, which I think is amazing. But then there was also the work connections. There was individuals who'd be having a challenge in their operating company and they knew, hey, my partner in the program does this. They're in supply chain. I'm going to connect with them. We need some help here. And it each year slowly started to really build bigger and bigger and bigger senses of communities where it wasn't so siloed, where each operating company wasn't acting so independently. It was, we have resources in other places, we have relationships in other places. I'm comfortable reaching out to so and so because I spent a year with them. And
Hmm.
so that to me was the biggest win because shared knowledge is going to get an organization farther than anything, and collaboration and working together. And if one OC is doing something great, we want to spread that amongst everyone. And they felt comfortable and empowered because these were their teammates, the ones that they spent a year of intense work with. And I'm so proud of that, and hearing
Yeah.
people reconnecting through years after their
Yeah.
program ended, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah. And for context, right? I mean, you had, I don't know how many, 22, 23. You had so many operating companies, right? And so the globally, so the possibility of siloing it wasn't just a possibility, it was a reality.
Yep.
And the trickle down, like you talked about the people in in the groups, the cohorts connecting across as the years go on, like they told the people who worked for them, oh, you should talk to so and so over at this one. And then it was like, and they told two friends and so on and so on. And it really just built these cross connections. Another thing that I thought was super cool is, we always say it's a little bit like an investor who's like, this is not a guarantee of result, la, la, la.
Hmm.
However, you had a lot of people get promoted that were in the program. And there was cost avoidance around, hey, we would have gone to the outside normally for this role or that role. And we've got this pool of people that are known, that have proven themselves, and
Yep.
you had promotions happen. Is there anything
Yep.
that you want to add?
And not even just promotions. One of those promotions went into a different department and went
Mhm.
from one side into leading operations because of the skills that they showed through this program and the program kind of manager role they took. Each year you kind of see someone step up as that PM to keep everything together and keep the group
Yeah.
together. And
Yeah.
one individual was so, phenomenal at that skill set. It put him into a leadership role that would not have been identified on his development plan or his path, likely. And we saw so much from him that he was able to grow in a way that wasn't expected. And I think we saw that in a number of spots. It gave us visibility into strengths that we wouldn't have seen, gave us, of course, obviously visibility into opportunities to continue to grow and develop to get people where they
Mhm.
needed to be.
Mhm.
But it showed people were ready maybe before we anticipated. It showed people could do more than the scope that they were in. So
Yeah.
it grew into more than just, well, you're going to go from director to VP in your silo. We saw people growing and taking on bigger roles in other areas because of the
Yeah.
program.
That makes my heart happy. And when you said you saw them growing faster and in ways that you couldn't have anticipated, we talk about this program as an accelerator. Like we fully believe that sometimes organizations, through their own efforts, do their level best to try to develop people, but that it takes longer.
Yeah.
You got to put them in this seat and you got to put them in that seat, and business doesn't have time for that,
Yeah.
especially growing, scaling businesses. And so a program like this accelerates that path where people were, stepping into senior roles faster than anyone imagined. Let's talk about senior leadership support and the story behind Did this come from HR? Was it a shared idea with senior leadership? How do you and how did you get senior leadership involvement in your program?
Yeah, we obviously we're fortunate. We came from an organization where, our CEO was very understanding and invested in the creation of this program from the start. Kind of knew and saw the opportunity that we needed as our organization was growing kind of incredibly rapidly. Um, we needed to be prepared for what that growth meant, and we couldn't continue to hire from the outside. We had a very, very unique structure. We operated in very unique ways, and continuously bringing in from the outside was slowing that growth. So he was so invested and bought in. But of course, it took him really championing the program and championing the program with a level of honesty. I mean, we had 22 operating companies globally. So I don't think that man was ever in one spot for more than a day.
Yeah.
So he was upfront in the beginning of the program and very clear in his support. And even if he wasn't in every in-person meeting or every dinner, what he did do is show up for the group initially. He made himself available, but he spoke to his leadership team
Hmm.
about this program consistently. He was holding his C-suite accountable. He was holding
Hmm.
presidents accountable for the success of the program. He was talking about it at our leadership conference. And so having that level of support, and I think really presenting it that way, your C-suite doesn't need to necessarily be in every meeting. That can feel daunting for someone who's
Hmm.
traveling to 22 operating companies around the world. But
Yeah.
that support and that buy-in is seen and felt. And when he's holding his leadership team accountable, if it's presented that way, if it's presented as we need to communicate this consistently and regularly, that's something every leader can do. And they often don't realize the level of impact that
Hmm.
repeated conversation has, that repeated check-in. How's your team doing? How's your group doing? He was on every project check-in call, even if he was in
Hmm.
Europe or wherever he was.
Yeah.
But I think that was the piece that really helped in creating a stronger buy-in from him, was acknowledging that, we know you're everywhere and anywhere all at once, but he supported it through different ways. And we really helped try to find those opportunities where we could create support so that that was
Mhm.
seen and visible if the
Yeah.
physical presence was. And I think that piece is missed a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, if I'm someone listening to this and I'm trying to get a program like this off the ground, I'm honestly might be a little discouraged hearing that, Jess. I might be like, man, you had a rock star CEO, you had all this support from the top, and yet, I mean, not everyone has that, let's be real,
Mhm.
right? And so with other leaders, I know you probably had to do a little selling, a little convincing, even though Mike, that's the CEO, was so great at that. I'm just
Mhm.
thinking we should talk a little bit about how do you get the buy-in from the people who are skeptical? Because a lot of people are going to be facing that. I know, I think part of it is the ALP. I think saying, hey, we've got this case study from a real client where they avoided a $500,000 spend on a expensive consultant to create an operating system. This thing pays for itself. Like I think that can help with senior leaders, but do you have other tips for people who are
Yeah.
trying to get something off the ground?
Yeah, for sure. I think really, especially when you look at organizations like the ones that I came from, manufacturing, engineering, even when you broaden outside of that into financial institutions or creative institutions, at the end of the day, senior leadership thrives on ROI, facts, numbers.
Yeah.
That is it. Anything theoretical is really tough to sell. When you start to get into the warm fuzzies that those of us in HR know and love,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
Sandy knows
good to
me.
develop people
I
that
live in the
just
warm
believe
fuzzies.
me.
That's
That
my
doesn't
life.
work.
I think I cried at every graduation. I'm like the 40-year-old mom watching her 40, 50-year-old children graduate and
I
crying.
love
And,
it.
that stuff doesn't really work outside of the ones
Yeah,
who are deeply invested and
that's
passionate
right.
in it. We're the ones who create the energy behind the program. But for those leaders that have that hesitation, it's really bringing them that ROI. As Sandy mentioned, we built an operating system for our business of 22 operating companies. It took 2 classes that would have been hundreds of thousands of dollars with outside consultants who didn't know our business, who didn't know resources to talk to, who would have delayed the process, having to learn and understand all of that, who would have eaten up time from millions of resources in the
Yeah.
organizations trying to
Yeah.
learn and figure out things. So we were able to present that as an ROI. And the other is, falling back on the hiring metrics that we know we are going to lose people if we continue to hire from the outside. We have
Mm.
great growth that we need to be able to have a path to develop. We need to show our teams that here is our investment in you. You know, the world has changed so much in that. I think 20 years ago when I started recruiting, it was the dollar amount on the paycheck. That's what people cared about. That
Mhm.
is the last question that I get. It's
Yeah.
always, what development programs do you have? What opportunities are there for growth? And if you don't have these things and you are going after top talent in the market, you
Mhm.
won't win. People
Yeah.
want to go where they're invested in. So there are so many pieces of analytics that you can give to your leaders that justify a program like this. And
Mhm.
that's what resonates with leadership
Yeah.
is we're not only saving money, but we're growing teams, we're increasing retention, we're limiting outside hiring costs, and we're going
Mhm.
to see better outcomes and direct impact on the business through a project. It almost becomes a why wouldn't you do this? And I think
Yeah.
that's the question you ask.
Yeah.
What would stop us from doing this? And there really isn't an answer that you could get that you wouldn't be able to address because why
Yeah.
wouldn't you do this?
Yeah. Chef's kiss, really brilliant.
Yeah,
It wasn't always wine and roses on every single aspect of this, right? Like we always had some healthy tension about how do you select people into the program. And every year, I mean, just being real, right? Every year we were like, we'd love you to do it this way. And every year you didn't do it that way. And so, talk a little bit about how you selected people into the program and how sometimes we have to give a little bit, right? Like we might know it's the better way to do something, but we have to give. Just talk about that tension we had around selection.
I think this is one of those opportunities where it's like learn from our misstep. And our misstep was, I think, so well intentioned. And we obviously know intention and impact are often not aligned. And
Right, right.
intention really doesn't matter if the impact isn't there, but the intention was so good. Our organization really was built with the mindset of operating companies have a significant amount of autonomy. We wanted them to feel empowered to make their choices, to drive their business. And so when we created the framework for nominations, it was pretty broad. It was needed to be at a certain level, needed to be at the organization for a certain amount of time. We really wanted to make sure that the groups were aligned in terms of, roughly their level, because we know someone who's a senior VP is likely not going to have a lot to collaborate with someone who's a new manager, and that's going to
Mhm.
affect the dynamics of the group. So we did have some structural things in place.
Mhm.
But what we realized is after the first class, and I think whenever you're launching a program like this, those rock stars are pretty apparent. We all kind of know who the first class is going to be. When you
Mhm.
start getting beyond that and the organization is growing and you're getting new companies, we don't know everyone as well. I mean, our organization over doubled in size in the time that I was there.
Right. Right. I was
And
thinking
so
about that.
that good intention created some tension because what our C-suite might have defined as high potential was we're learning different than what some of our presidents defined as high potential. And we
Mhm.
had to work through nominations on how they came to that conclusion, what might be a better path for that individual. But that really created a lot of back and forth and a lot
Mhm.
of almost gray and confusion
Yeah.
because we would then go back to a president and say, we don't think that this individual is ready yet for this program. And they were looking at it like, but I think they're ready.
Yeah.
And so that disconnect then made it hard for them to nominate, for the team to kind of identify specifically what they were looking for. Those assessments and metrics help put context into
Mhm.
the reality of the work. We might see
Yeah.
someone doing a great job. That really gives some data behind it to make kind of well rounded decisions that align everybody around the world
Hmm.
versus 22
Yeah.
personal opinions.
Yeah. And the tension I think that always was there, right, is a lot of times leaders are focused on performance as they should be, right? Like this is a high performer. And even if you give them that classic axis of performance and potential, sometimes to be real, a line leader doesn't necessarily know the construct of potential. They
Yep.
don't know what to be looking for in that. What we were always suggesting is let's do some level of outside assessment. Let's not have it be um, just manager led because we can almost do a teach to the senior leaders around what potential involves. It involves learning agility, it involves
Mhm.
coachability. And there are pretty easy ways that we can screen, like you could take 50 people nominated for a program, do some little bit of personality assessment, some other assessment, all 50 get development through getting feedback on that. And
Yep.
you can identify because sometimes I'm not saying your program had this, but there are people who are just not coachable. Like they think they know everything. They don't belong in a program. They're going to take a spot
Yep.
from somebody else. And sometimes you can highlight a diamond in the rough that maybe no one had on their radar. And also, frankly, people sometimes those look like non-traditional candidates. They can look like minority candidates. And when you do
Yep.
this potential assessment, you find those diamonds in the rough and you elevate them in the program. And honestly, we were never successful at using that framework here, and the program still works really well. And so
Yep.
you just wanted to highlight that ideally you're looking at coachability, learning agility, a couple other
Yeah.
characteristics to see who's
But
going to
as you
thrive.
talk about that, I
Yeah.
think it's really important for people to think about often middle managers are put in their roles because they're great at the technical work of what they did. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't like this person is a great people leader. This person was a great engineer. They were great
So
at
many times.
sales
Yeah.
and they get nominated into the program. But are they the best people leader? Do they have potential to lead people? Do they want to lead people? We would find nominations and go to them and they were like, I don't
I don't
love
even want
managing
it.
people.
Yeah. And like, let's normalize saying no, thank you to a leadership development program. And it's not career limiting. Because if you know, I don't want to be a people leader, or this program is intense and I can't do it right now, but that doesn't mean no forever. You don't blacklist someone, and cut them out. You just look at them again the next year on that.
Yes.
Um, there was
Yeah.
something else about that. Oh, the other thing that made me think of, you can tell we're getting excited, the two of us together. It was going to happen. The other thing that made me think of is the way the program morphs, right? It's not, we don't do modules off the shelf for everybody every year. And so as your participants maybe shifted in how they looked, I hate this phrase, but I'm going to use it. You meet them where they're at. Like we
Mhm.
change the content, we change what they're learning based on who's in it.
Yep. And not only that, we would shift the content mid-program. If
Yeah.
we had a new acquisition, if we had leadership changes, if we had process changes, group changes, I mean, that organization changed so frequently. And there were
Hmm.
points a couple of the times through the years that we would have something significant happen in the organization. And I needed to call you or call Daryl and say, hey, I think when we meet in September, we need to talk about how to manage change with your teams, how to address uncertainty, because we're bringing on a new company or we changed this group, whatever the case may be. We were pivoting so that the content was always relevant and applicable to the lives and the work that they were living versus
Hmm.
like you said, okay, this week we are going to go into emotional intelligence and this week we are going to go into
Right.
whatever
Never mind that
chapter
your
we're
world is
on.
changing all around you, but we're
Yes.
going to stay like, no, that would have been ridiculous,
Yes.
right?
Yes. So that's significant. That
Yeah.
is real learning.
And we always can frame anything, and navigating ambiguity is an important part of leadership. look, everyone, we just pivoted. We just changed this.
Yep.
Um, I'm guessing people have questions for you. We've been sort of talking at each other, like having our own little coffee conversation here. I have one more question for you shamelessly before we open it up. You had a lot of options. And, shamelessly, I got to say, you chose us. And you were very generous about blasting out to the world on LinkedIn that we were partnering together and you were intentional about that word. And I know, you know, like you didn't call us vendors. Just talk a little bit about how this partnership was a true partnership.
Yeah, I think, from the beginning, I had kind of some frustration and doubt that I would find a partner. I was meeting with so many vendors, and it was, we'll deliver this program, here's our program, and they'd send over a brochure, and it was just every class would get this course and at this time, and a lot of it would be virtual, or, the facilitator might change, or it was just all okay, I'm going to download this program and send it out, and it will be that every year. And it went against everything that I wanted this program to be. And that was nerve wracking initially. I mean, talking to big, great leadership vendors. And I just felt like it was like, okay, we'll just be, client number 238, and our program is on Tuesday. And that was tough for me. And so when I connected with you and talked through, the things that mattered for me in this program, I think right away you saw kind of the level of intention and, passion that this was for me, and the way that you guys met me there. And we were able to partner together through a lot of conversations, a lot of development ideas. I was learning from you guys on things that would work to really strengthen this program. You guys were listening to me on how I really wanted this program to be something that resonated and became a goal for people. I wanted people to say, I want to be part of this program. So we created a partnership. It wasn't a client vendor relationship. Through so much conversation and creative dialogue and listening, that it was so easy right away to see this is a partner that's going to really take this program and accelerate it and turn it into everything that we know it can be. And so that's really what happened. Every year we were looking at the makeup of the class. We were aligning content because each year the class would change a little bit. It might be more senior, it might be more mid. And we spent time every, January before the program to look at the class together, to develop content. The facilitators were always checking in with me. We had constant dialogue on how sessions were going. We were preparing for next sessions based on the makeup of the group, maybe challenges that we were seeing, maybe opportunities we were seeing. The evolution was such a strong partnership that you're not going to get that level of learning and in-depth impact by taking content off the shelf. They're going to hear it, they're going to say great, then they're going to go back to their work. This creates impact in the individual, and that is what creates impact in the organization.
Well, thank you for that. And every year it gets even richer, right? Because it's like we know your story, we're living in your story. I mean, we're not there every
Yeah.
day. I'm not going to pretend that, but we know the terms, we know the people, even the like sort of picking out, oh, this goes against their culture. We can't, you
Yeah.
learn the nuance when you're a true partner versus a vendor. So, okay, that's probably enough of you and me yapping at each other. I'm curious now, just open it up. Like, who else has questions or comments or reactions? Um, what just the floor is everyone else's. What's on anyone's mind right now?
Andrew here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really nice hearing Jess's experience with the program. I mean, we're going through the program right now. So it was kind of a unique opportunity for me because I'm a participant in the program to hear
Amazing.
some of the positives and, some of the outcomes that came as a byproduct of her organization participating. So I'm really excited to see what the future holds, and I mean, it's been
Mhm.
a good ride so far. So it's just really refreshing to hear someone's firsthand account for sure.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks. And you're year one, right, Andrew? So just think about the potential legacy that comes from this.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
And maybe
Absolutely.
you got that idea about naming your group. I don't know if y'all have done that, but you're going to need a 3D printed icon so that you identify.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have to bring that back to the team and see if we
Yeah.
can land on on a name.
Yeah. What else? Other questions, comments? I know, Jenny, you had put something in the chat about, how do you kind of sell this in an organization? Is there anything you want to add on that or dive into on some of the details of how we actually did that?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, great. I'm just gonna close my office door. Um, yeah, I think it's hard. So I'm the HR department of one at an engineering firm in Center City, Philadelphia, and we're a small firm, about 10 people, and everyone is a billable person in my company except for
Mm,
me. And that is the struggle for myself, is just finding value in anything that I bring. I'm trying to be very valuable because I'm not a billable person. Um, and that's my struggle, is talking
mhm,
to the senior VP and the owner and bringing initiatives and saying, hey, I this is me bringing value. But if they
mm,
don't grab onto it, or if they don't think it's worth it, or if they don't have time for it, it's a small
mhm.
company, business owners, they're doing a million things, and they're in a million buckets. Um, and I'm only one person. And if, even though it's only 10 people here, it's a lot to be doing on my own if I don't
Mhm.
feel like I have the backing of leadership, because, it comes from top down, all the culture. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think hearing you say that was like, oh, someone else like understands that this could be a difficult thing to get by with them,
Mhm.
and to get them to even put the time into it. So, yeah, that's just where I'm sitting right
Yeah.
now. That resonated with me.
A couple of thoughts for you, Jenny. I know it's a small organization and it's a billable organization, so believe me, I get that challenge myself. But there's something in the selling the like measure twice, cut once, sort of, prepare before you do. And I think it's tied up in the ROI. So yeah, they're going to take billable hours to do
Hmm.
something, but showing them the return in the way that like Jess kind of laid it out, you just have to have different metrics. The other thought I
Yeah,
had brainstorming is we know of other organizations that are like 10 people is too small to do the specific program we're talking about, but we
sure.
know of other organizations that form a consortium. And so
Mm,
something we've been toying with is what if there's a cohort of 12 or 15 people across a couple of organizations
mm.
and you cost share with other small organizations, and then you get that learning from other or truly different organizations? And is that something that can help, kind of sell internally an additional value of you just do it with someone else?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I had not thought of that, but
Yeah, yeah,
we
let's.
have a kind of a niche business too, so there
Mhm.
would be a number of or other organizations that could be interested. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no worries. By the way, I'll be in Center City in the middle of May, so there you go. I'll wave from afar as I'm passing through Philly.
Oh, that
I
would be
think just to
wonderful.
add to that really quick, the
Yeah.
opportunity there is one where, you know, being kind of the HR department of one, we we know and see and feel every day what we can do to make things better. And it can be such a challenge when, it is a smaller organization and the leadership team is really focused on, the work that needs to be done. And I think it's kind of having the mindset, if you can get one in a program like Sandy mentioned, we kind of saw our program take off between like year 2 and 3 is when we really saw steam starting to gain because of the reputation and people talking about it. So I think going into it with that mindset of let's try to sell one to senior leadership, let's get one or two into a cohort because it's going to pay off. With that HR brain, the outcome. You already know what's going to happen. It's going to be successful. Let's just show them what can happen with one or two. It's a lot easier to sell one or
Mm.
two than a full cohort program of all of your employees.
Speaking of, you're now sitting in a smaller organization, Jess. I mean, I know what you're up to, but just talk about the career pivot and putting you on the spot. Maybe you and Jenny and some others get together for this consortium we're talking about, right? Where you send one or two people. So anyway, just talk a little bit about that before we wrap, asking people, what their takeaways are.
Yeah, I am incredibly lucky. So I did the corporate world for about 20 years and loved it. But, for the last six, watched my husband built a US wide small engineering firm. And what I loved about what he did was he left a firm because, it became very corporate and it became kind of all of the things that I always struggled with. Are you at your desk at a certain time? And are you leaving early because your kid has something? And, kind of just all of that stuff that takes away from the passion. And so in 2019, he started an engineering firm and built it around supporting his team and being human and caring about the product of the work that he put out. And it has blown up year over year. And it just got to the point last year that, we made the decision that it made sense for me to leave the corporate world and jump in with him. And it's amazing. I've, built benefit programs that support our employees. We are human centric while we put out
Mhm.
amazing engineering work. And in doing that, I've been able to do so much of the work that I love. I'm still very involved with the state. So I'm on our workforce board, a number of committees there, and I'm more involved in our school district. So I'm our incubator judge this year, judging our high school seniors and their Shark Tank pitches. And then I'll be a
Mm.
mentor in the incubator program next year. So being able to, take all this development and human work that I love to do and not being confined to kind of the parameters of the corporate restrictions. I get to support my husband's business, which is amazing. And I'm could not be more proud to be part of that and get involved in the state deeper, our school district, and just live doing the things that I love. And I'm very lucky and blessed for that, for sure.
Amazing. I mean, I knew that, but it's so great to have other people hear that it's possible to make career pivots like that. And the
Mhm.
fact that, like, your love of development shines through. A way that we end almost everything we do here at Lodestone, including lead sessions, is to have people reflect. Not just, so many times it's like, oh, I listened to that thing and now I got to run to the next thing. But having people take just a minute to think about what shifted in your thinking, even over the course of this last hour? I used to think this about development, and now I think blah, blah, blah. Maybe like I used to think a bit, getting people in a program like this wasn't possible. Now I think I should explore a consortium idea. Or I used to think, who knows? And what's an action you'll commit to today? And this is something where, just free for all. Is there anything on anyone's mind they want to share? And by the way, I would say, um, love this tool in general. So if maybe your takeaway is, hey, I'm going to wrap meetings like this now, um, we would love that for you.
I'll kick us off. I'll do my favorite one
Yeah. Okay.
because it ties into what we've talked about. I used to think title mattered. Now I think impact matters.
Ooh, love, love, love. Anyone else? Andrew, I still see you sitting there, and I know you're not shy to talk. Any used to think, now I think for you?
Um, Not necessarily. I mean, I'm kind of more so thinking about this program and thinking about all of the different various programs that I've been through in the past. And, this one's a lot different. I feel like it's a little bit more of a pressure cooker.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with
And
you.
yeah, and
No
and what
apologies there.
no, no, and I mean that's a positive thing. I think
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
positive thing, but it also had me thinking that like I really do think that to a degree it's not necessarily for everybody, if you don't mind me saying that. I
I
don't think
yeah.
I think that it has the propensity to to break some people for sure. I think you have to be ready for it.
Mhm.
But I think that it's one of those things that if you make it to the other side when you make it the other side, I think you're going to be all the more stronger for
Yeah.
sure.
I love that, and I don't mind that at all because that really takes us back to the selecting people into something, and you have to be thinking about it's not for everyone, and that's okay. Um, and that's not an indictment of the person that it's not for, too, right? Like whoever this program isn't for is still valuable, contributing to your organization, should have development opportunities in the future, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I do like Jess's statement about titles though, because I mean, I'm also a firm believer that titles are somewhat irrelevant. I mean, it's just been my experience that like I've worked with people that I feel like are leaders that have no title, and I've worked for people that are leaders by title that I don't think that the vast majority of people would, really want to follow. So I mean,
Mhm.
it's all about
Yeah.
impact. It really is.
Yeah, if you're someone said to me ages ago, if you think you're leading and you look behind you and there's no one there, you're just out taking a walk. Like some people are not leaders. And I feel like this could be a great conversation for us to have and share war stories maybe of people we know, but we're not going to do that on this recording. So that's probably a good place to wrap. Thank you everyone who attended live, and thanks to all the people listening after the fact. And of course, you know where to find us at Lodestone if you want to explore leadership development like our lead program or other versions of leadership development. So thanks for joining. We'll see everyone again soon.